It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Liverpool parade attacker jailed for more than 21 years. Paul Doyle ploughed into more than 130 people, ranging from a 6-month-old baby to a 77-year-old woman, with shocking footage from his own dash cam shown during his sentencing. Police say it was sheer luck that no one was killed, with the judge commending Dan Barr, a member of the public, who jumped into the back seat of Doyle's car and brought it to a stop.
We've gone from total chaos, panic, screaming, to relative silence as he's accelerated off, and then you can just hear the people being hit and run over.
Also ahead, a murder investigation underway in Weston Supermare after the death of a 9-year-old girl. A teenage boy was arrested after the girl was found dead in the Mead Vale area last night. We'll have the latest. Plus, from inmate to restaurant owner in less than 3 years. I'll be speaking to the chef who turned his life around through food. And good news for British fans heading to next summer's World Cup as FIFA announces new lower-priced tickets after a global backlash. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. The man who drove his car into crowds at the Liverpool victory parade back in May has today been sentenced to 21 years and 6 months in prison. Paul Doyle injured more than 130 people, with police saying it was sheer luck that no one was killed. The court heard how Doyle acted in an inexplicable and undiluted fury, with the judge saying he showed a disregard for human life. A warning that this report from our Chief North of England correspondent Greg Milam contains footage shown in court that you may find distressing.
This is dash cam footage from Paul Doyle's car moments before his rampage at the Liverpool parade, driving aggressively, running a red light. At a busy junction, the traffic lights are flashing amber. He narrowly misses people crossing the road. This was all a prelude of the horrors that were to come. He turns onto Dale Street. Further along this road is where he would begin an assault that would injure more than 100 people. Once he's in the city centre, images from CCTV released by police show a family with a pushchair moving out of his way. As the crowd becomes thicker, he edges forward. More people are forced to move aside to avoid his car. We see him drive up to a keep right sign, traffic measures designed to keep the crowd safe, measures he ignored. He continues on, the street packed, more and more people dodging to safety. In the throng of fans, he goes on, deliberately, police said, consumed by rage, using his 2-ton car as a weapon, hitting men, women and children, even a pram. In this crowd, there was simply nowhere to run for safety. He even reverses into an emergency vehicle. That dash cam in Doyle's car recorded footage of the incident, too graphic to show. Some of the sound we can play you.
Move! 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 What are you doing?
In my 20 years of police service, this is the most distressing and graphic footage that I've come across. It gives us an eye view of what Doyle was encountered with on Dale Street and Water Street at that time. It really is horrific viewing to watch. You can see people in front of his vehicle, and Doyle has got complete disregard for their safety. He continues to drive as people bounce off his bonnet, as people go underneath his vehicle. He clearly got angrier and angrier as the dashcam footage rolls on. He was shouting profanities at the people in his way, shouting things such as, "It's a road, move out my way, get out of the way," and various other profanities. He just clearly got red mist, as we would describe it, and there was nothing stopping him.
What did stop him was former soldier Dan Barr, who managed to get into Doyle's car.
Desperation to get him stopped, determination to stop him by whatever means. I think that was going through my head. he accelerated off and the door slammed shut. So we've gone from total chaos, panic, screaming, to relative silence as he's accelerated off, and then you can just hear the people being hit and run over. I was obviously aware that it was horrendous, and I could see people's faces, they could see the looks of just, like they were trying to plead but wasting their time. That's all that they could do. There was nowhere to go, there was nowhere to get out the way. I do recall seeing they had an automatic, and therefore P for park was right at the very end, so it wasn't even in the middle or anything. So I thought, like, just jam that forward as far as you can. That should stop him from memory. And it did.
Police have described him as a hero.
I don't think I am, seriously. I think it's standard. I think, like you hear about this, of course, he wouldn't do, if he could have, wouldn't have done what I did. Who, you know, I can't think of anyone, especially on that street.
Get him in.
Doyle was arrested at the scene.
On the floor, on the floor. That's my life's ruined now. There's been so many people blind. Please. Paul Doyle. Paul Doyle. Yeah.
He said he'd feared for his life. Prosecutors said that was lies. At the parade, Debbie Blair filmed the celebrations. There with her son Mike, a day of joy for thousands of fans that was to turn to one of horror. It is that lives with them, the fear, even initially shared by police, that it was terrorism.
Well, obviously, seeing the car coming and seeing people flying up in the air and body, you know, going out like feet, really, wasn't it? And then he's pushed me out the way, and I've got pushed with the crowd. People were just screaming, it's a terrorist, it's a terrorist. He might have a gun, he might have a knife, you know. Next minute, people were all screaming, kill him, kill him.
It was just carnage, total carnage. So we ran to the car. Obviously, his body's underneath it. So after a bit of scuffling around, we tried to lift the car. So after all that, after 6, 8 minutes, 7 minutes, I've sat down in the bar and I basically started collapsing with injuries.
Mike was one of the 130 injured that day, his lungs still affected.
Shouldn't have happened, but for someone to intentionally do that, it's quite sick, really.
But Paul Doyle has previous convictions for violence. In a fight in a pub in the early 90s, he bit off part of someone's ear. He was discharged from the Royal Marines around that time. The court was told he was remorseful, ashamed and deeply sorry for what happened in May. What he did in those couple of minutes, prosecutors say, devastated a lot of people's lives. That no one died in his rampage, police say, was sheer luck.
And Greg Milam has the latest for us now from Liverpool Crown Court.
Well, over the course of this sentencing hearing, we heard statements from dozens of people who were there that day, people who feared they were going to die, feared their family members were going to die, feared some of those around them were going to die, and talking about the ongoing physical and psychological impact of that to this day, and many feel that it will last for the rest of their lives. The mother of a baby whose pram was hit by Doyle's car, talking about reliving that image, not knowing whether her child was alive or dead. It's changed how I see the world, she said. Other parents talked about their guilt at having taken their children to that event in the first place. One parent saying, we were just trying to protect our children. And their words also directed straight to Paul Doyle, saying, I want you to think about them all. Don't just sit in the dock and cry for yourself. And other parents saying that Doyle didn't just injure their child's body, it left emotional scars on the whole family. One victim, who'd also been at the Manchester Arena bombing, talking about the same overwhelming sense of fear when all of this was going on. The judge, Andrew Menery, reflecting on all of that when he delivered his sentencing remarks to Paul Doyle.
The footage is truly shocking. It is difficult, if not impossible, to convey in words alone the scene of devastation you caused. It shows you quite deliberately accelerating into groups of fans time and time again. You struck people head on, knocked others onto the bonnet, drove over limbs, crushed prams, and forced those nearby to scatter in terror. You ploughed on at speed and over a considerable distance, violently knocking people aside or simply driving over them, person after person after person. You accelerated forwards and backwards repeatedly. Several victims became trapped beneath the vehicle as you continued to move it. Others were thrown into the air or propelled across the ground. A number of witnesses, including serving police officers, describe you continuing to press the accelerator even when people were visibly underneath the car. You shouted expressions of frustration, or rather your shouted expressions of frustration underline your state of mind at the time. Not fear or panic, but an inexplicable and undiluted fury.
Now, we are no nearer understanding what it was that triggered Paul Doyle's rage that day. There had been nothing out of the ordinary during the course of the day to suggest it might happen before he was seen driving aggressively as he headed into Liverpool in the evening. Friends described him as a kind and generous man who did work for the community. He'd actually been doing a favour for a friend that day by dropping him off with his family at the parade route and then going in to pick them up again. But friends and family struggling to reconcile the man that they knew with the man who would carry out that rampage, and Paul Doyle's lawyer saying that even Paul Doyle didn't really understand why he acted in that way. But the costs of what he did were life-changing, and I spoke after the sentencing to a man called Rob Dark, who suffered life-changing injuries in that attack. He said, having seen that sentence of 21.5 years handed down, it was a good result.
Well, as we heard in Greg's report, former soldier Dan Barr was described today as a hero by police after managing to climb into Doyle's car and pulling the gear lever into park. Officers said without his actions, the attack would have carried on. Let's hear more from Dan about what happened that day.
Well, there was an ambulance on Water Street, and I was heading towards that. I remember thinking, oh, imagine trying to get an ambulance through this. That must be chaotic. So I was headed towards the right of it from where I was coming. And quite a lot of things are blurry, but I do remember roughly being near the ambulance and seeing like just the roof, like a dark coloured roof of a car, like snaking through people and just being knocked out of the way, flown through the air, and just like they weren't there. And that was coming towards me. Well, that's when I obviously knew something was wrong, as everybody else around me did at the same time. A lot of things are blurry. I remember seeing that snaking through. I don't remember how close I've come to being in contact with his car. I just remember, for some reason, I don't know why, but his vehicle stopped for a bit. And at that exact time, this is my memory, by the way, I'm not saying it happened like this, I seem to remember like the crowd opening up and there being a gap for the rear left door. So I ran over to that. There was already other men at different positions around the car trying to get in desperately. And now I assume it was locked. The car was locked. I remember desperately trying to punch their way in. But just the sheer desperation of the situation, you just knew it wasn't over. I don't know why. We didn't really know what it was at that point. I remember running up maybe about 5 paces and bracing myself to punch the window through, because once again, assuming it was locked. But right at the last split second, I tried the door. Mine opened, so I got in the back seat.
And what were you thinking at that moment? Like, why did you decide to try and get into the vehicle? What was your aim?
Just to stop the situation. I just knew you've got to do something. Nothing else really mattered, to be honest with you. My thinking was, I'll tell you, I remember being glad I was in. I remember glad I got in there. I remember thinking, right, we're in. We, as in, are in. But as soon as that thought entered my head, he accelerated off and the door slammed shut. So we've gone from total chaos, panic, screaming, to relative silence as he's accelerated off, and then you can just hear the people being hit and run over, and like 10-pin bowling, and yeah, pretty horrendous. I could see everything from where I was.
And what was going through your head at that moment?
Desperation to get him stopped, determination to stop him by whatever means. I think that was going through my head, because I remember checking out my options. What I mean by that is I'd have been looking for where the keys were. I can't remember whether I'd done this, but I imagine I'd have grabbed hold of the wheel. I'd have probably ended up messing around with him, going for the, I can't think of the name, the handbrake, whatever. I don't recall, but I do recall seeing they had an automatic, and therefore P for park was right at the very end, so it wasn't even in the middle or anything. So I thought, like, just jam that forward as far as you can. That should stop him from memory. And it did. I'm not sure whether this is like involved in the case or anything, because I don't know the details of everything else. But as far as I'm concerned, I didn't feel safe after that, because, well, not that I didn't feel safe. I'm not really bothered about that, to be honest with you. I didn't feel the job was done. Although I had my hand on park, according to me, he was accelerating still. He was still trying to get going. He was still, I can't remember, I think he was trying to get my arm off. That might be, sorry, as I say, things are a bit fuzzy. But I kept my hand on there. Nothing would have moved my arm, no way. And obviously the crowd come in again. Once he stopped the final time, the windows start coming through. I remember people trying to drag him out, but his seatbelt was on. And I managed to get, I don't know, I have to do weird positions when I'm explaining this story, sorry. I managed to get my hand up and press in a weird position. Obviously I'm in the back seat between the middle. I pressed his seatbelt button, and as soon as I pressed it, he was gone, because the crowd had him out. That's when I thought, okay, sound.
Well, I'm joined now by the Crown Court reporter for the Liverpool Echo, Adam Everett. Adam, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us here on Sky News. I appreciate your time after what has been a harrowing few weeks, days in court. How are you reflecting on the closure of what has been an horrific chapter for the city of Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. But yeah, it's been ever since, I think my mind first of all goes back to the first time I saw those videos that we all saw on social media in the aftermath of this incident. And my thought, as I'm sure everyone else's thought was, is just how many people have been killed in this incident. You know, the footage that we saw at the time was harrowing, and the footage that's emerged in court over the past few days, even more so. I know that people close to the case, you know, trained professionals who've seen all manner of things over the years, even they were shocked and moved by what they saw, which, I mean, it's hard to put into words, really. Just how awful the footage is. It's the footage from Paul Doyle's dash cam itself, the dash cam within his vehicle, and essentially just shows really the devastation and chaos he's caused in all too vivid detail. Really, you're able to see very clearly the looks on people's faces as they see Paul Doyle's car coming towards them, the horror, the disbelief, just something they never expected to see, nothing they ever expected to happen to them on what was obviously meant to be a day of great celebration for the city.
Can you tell me what it was like in court when that dash cam footage was played? It's not been released into the public domain, and of course we're only playing audio from it because, as you've described there, the pictures are horrific viewing, you know, people bouncing off bonnets, distressing and graphic footage. But as a moment that's been described as a standout moment in this trial, what was the atmosphere like in court as that was played out? And what indeed was the reaction of Paul Doyle himself?
Yeah, I think it was just one of shock, really. Obviously, some people in court would have seen this footage previously anyway, but I think even after you've watched it 3, 4, 5 times, it still takes your breath away, really, and makes you wonder just how nobody was killed. And I think in the courtroom itself, obviously quite a number of his victims were present there in the courtroom. For them, they were probably seeing this footage for the very first time. And yeah, there were obviously audible gasps, people were in tears. I think, again, it just laid bare for them they already knew obviously the enormity of what they'd been involved in, but I think, yeah, it's harrowing viewing even for myself and other professional people. So I can't even imagine what it's like for the people who were involved in and struck by Paul Doyle's car to see that footage. And in terms of himself, he was very often in tears at times throughout the hearing over the past couple of days, and obviously this was one of the times where he was sort of sat forward, hunched over, with his head bowed, in tears. Obviously at that stage, as well as when statements were read to the court on behalf of the victims, he's obviously clearly emotional as the process was going on.
Well, Adam, you know, you've touched on it there, and the police said it was sheer luck that no one died in that attack on the parade. And the lasting impact on those that were injured was heard in court, the victim impact statements. So many victims, you know, alive but living with the consequences. What was some of their testimony that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously they set out the broken bones and the nasty wounds and grazes and I think there were even, you know, spinal injuries that people had suffered. But I think really what they were really hammering home was the psychological impact on them, the mental impact on them. You know, I think long after the broken bones heal and the cuts and bruises heal, I think that's really the thing that they're going to be left with, not for just weeks or months, but I think years and probably the rest of their lives, really. The statements we heard ranged from there was boys and girls who were 11, 12 years old, right up to a 77-year-old woman who was badly injured during the crash. And also a really striking one was there was a mum whose 6-month-old baby, she was pushing in a pram and was struck by the car. And you just can't imagine the distress that she could have gone through, and though the dad was obviously also there, and what they've gone through as parents, really. Every single thought must just race through your head at a time like that, and it's just a sheer miracle that they and nobody else was killed during this incident.
And Adam, the Liverpool Echo always reflects the mood of the city. How will the paper be covering this final chapter in, as I said, was a horrific incident that occurred at a time of celebration, of pure joy for the city's football club?
I think Liverpool, as a city, I think it's renowned for, in times of adversity, showing itself at its best, really. And I think we saw that. Obviously, we just heard from Dan Barr, who did something absolutely remarkable. He'd never tell you that himself. I don't think he seems far too humble for that, having spoken to him myself a couple of days ago. But you know, he's certainly saved further people from being seriously injured. possibly save people from being killed as well. And I think he's reflective of the city, really, and I think we also saw the good in our city in the aftermath as well, when people kindly offered lifts home to people when they were stranded in town after it was essentially gridlocked and a little bit on lockdown in town in the aftermath, and people even offering to throw open the homes to people from further afield who were stuck in Liverpool. So I think really that's the true character of the city, and it's a resilient city, and yet again I think it's shown that.
Adam, I really appreciate your time this evening after what has been a very difficult time covering this trial. Paul Doyle, the Liverpool attacker, sentenced to more than 21 years in prison today for that parade attack. Thank you for your time, Adam Everett from the Liverpool Echo.
Yes.
So to come here on the UK Tonight, we'll have the latest as a teenage boy is arrested over the murder of a 9-year-old girl in Weston-super-Mare.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
A teenage boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a 9-year-old girl was found dead in Weston-super-Mare. Let's get more on this. Sky's Emma Birchley joins me in the studio. Emma, what can you tell us?
Well, the police have described it as an utterly dreadful case, and it really is. The 999 call came in last night at around 6 o'clock, and the ambulance service went to Lyme Close in the Mead Vale area of Weston-super-Mare and very quickly realised they were dealing with something incredibly serious. So it was the ambulance that then called the police, who arrived just before 6:10. So it all happened very rapidly, and a short time later, a 9-year-old girl was pronounced dead at the scene. It wasn't long then before a teenage boy was arrested about a mile away. Now, he remains in custody, and we've heard from Superintendent Jen Appleyard from Avon and Somerset Police, who's spoken about how this will leave the community distraught and shocked, but she's also spoken too of the pain, of course, that the family's going through.
The girls' family were informed last night of what has happened, and our heartfelt condolences go out to them. And we will ensure they receive support from specially trained officers. It is impossible for us to adequately put into words the pain and anguish they are feeling right now. Out of respect for the girls' family, we'd please ask that people do not speculate on the circumstances or the identities of those involved.
Well, you could see the cordon that was in place there. We know that house-to-house inquiries have been underway, that forensic teams have been working at the scene, in the house, and there is not thought to be a wider risk to the public. That has been made clear by the police, and there are extra patrols, really predominantly for reassurance for the community. And as we understand it, the post-mortem examination is yet to be carried out. But, I mean, clearly this is an absolutely awful story unfolding. Yeah, Emma. OK, thank you. Emma Birchley there with the details on that, as you said, awful story. Thank you. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, from inmate to restaurant owner in less than 3 years. I'm going to speak to the chef who turned his life around through food. And we'll have the details as FIFA announces new lower-priced tickets for the World Cup after a global backlash. Now, FIFA today announced a new ticket pricing tier for next summer's World Cup after a global backlash at the potential cost for fans to go to the tournament. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris is across the details and joins me now. Rob, good news for fans.
Well, for a few hundred at least, because that seems the number that might benefit from this new lower tier that's been introduced. There will now be $60 tickets, about £45. for every single match, all 104 matches, including the final in New Jersey at the Men's World Cup next year. This is a rare climb down by FIFA following a huge backlash by fans. So much fury since these ticket price categories emerged last week when tickets went on sale following the draw. And we've rarely seen such a global outcry like this. But while we have these new $60 tickets, think back to the bid when they won it in 2018, the US, Canada and Mexico. Then they were promising $21 tickets. So that's why we've got Football Supporters Europe who are still saying that the vast majority of fans will still be paying extortionate prices for the tickets. They said there was a lack of consultation. They think this is just appeasement, they're saying, to deal with the backlash that's grown, and the fact they're saying there's also issues over still not knowing the pricing for disability tickets or companion tickets as well. So about 10% of the allocation for each team will get these $60 tickets. And that's why we say, for England's opening match against Croatia in Dallas, it might only be 400 to 700 tickets. But it is a boost because England fans, at a very minimum for that game, were paying about £165. Scotland fans, for their opening match against Haiti and Boston, were paying at least £135. But there is a big step up. If any team reaches the final, their fans are going to have to pay, if they don't get the $60 tickets, well over £3,000. It's a huge amount for this, but FIFA needs the Men's World Cup to generate its income. It's projecting to generate about almost £10 billion in the 4-year cycle. It helps to fund the women's tournaments, the youth tournaments and football more broadly. But fans still aren't happy at the cost of going to the World Cup.
Rob, thank you. Rob Harris there with that news on some cheaper tickets for some fans. Thank you. Now, we've spoken a lot on this programme this year about the state of the UK justice system and the seeming lack of support for inmates, both inside prison and after their release. But my next guest has turned his life around in the space of 3 years with help from a mentoring scheme that looks to give prisoners a fresh start. Sina Faley left prison in 2022 and started work at a bakery in East London after being supported by Switchback, a prisoner rehabilitation charity. After finishing his programme at the bakery, Sina went on to become a chef and helped open a multi-million-pound restaurant at Battersea Power Station. He has now launched a new burger joint in Enfield, where he hopes to provide opportunities for others in the community. It's called Bundem. Well, I'm very glad that Sina has come into the studio to see us. Sina, really good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
This is quite an incredible story, and I think to chart how far you've come, you've got to go back to the beginning, when you were 18 and you found yourself going to prison. Talk to me about the path you were on, the circumstances, what was going on in your life at the time.
I was just trapped in a very messy environment, surrounded by just, I would say, evil people. Definitely, I took a lot of the bad traits from them growing up. And it led to a path that just wasn't the best. And it caused me to go to prison for a few years. Yeah, you were in West London, you were caught up in the county lines gangs, which again is something we talk about a lot on this programme. And you went to prison for 3 years. We talk about a broken prison system. What was it like as an 18-year-old? I mean, you weren't released until you were 22. What was it like in prison for you as a young man? I would definitely say there was this aspect of finding who I am in an environment like that. You're definitely trapped in a very uncomfortable situation with no control over what you got. The only things promised to you is your meals and when you are in your room. So that was definitely a very difficult journey, but did develop me a lot, and I did spend a lot of time for myself trying to discover what I can and can't do. Yeah. You talk about the fact that halfway through your prison sentence, you realised that you wanted to take another path, you wanted to turn your life around, but you couldn't see opportunity around you. All you could see were, well, circumstances that would make you... We often talk to people who have been released that say the only thing you learn about in prison really is how to become a better criminal. You could have taken that path, but you wanted to take a different one. How difficult was it to find an opportunity? Surely it wasn't... For me, it wasn't really hard. I saw the way people were living. In prison, you see walks of life of people that have been doing this for a short term and people that have been doing it years on years. And
so you see people coming back into the system?
Yeah, like a cycle. Literally, there was times where I would see someone leave the prison and then a few months later they're back. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense.
And you didn't want that to happen to you. And you were one of the lucky ones, because we talk about support for ex-offenders after they leave prison. The government is saying they want that to be, you know, standard for offenders when they leave. It just isn't the case at the moment. But you were one of the lucky few that were put in touch with Switchback, the charitable organisation. Can you tell me a little bit about them and what they did for you?
Switchback met me in prison, and it wasn't the best introduction because during that time that they came and introduced the programme to me, I was in a hard time in prison. Used to get engaged in a lot of fights and problems.
So you were having setbacks?
I was having a lot of setbacks, and I had an amazing mentor called Hannah. And Hannah, I think she saw it in me. She used to come and be very consistent with introducing me to the programme. And eventually she saw that I really wanted to engage. Then I came out of prison and she was ready for me a few days after, and we just cracked on.
Yeah, and what did this programme look for you? Because Switchback give you an opportunity to work, and it's, you know, it is about earning money, of course, but it's about having that opportunity to build. So where did you go with Switchback?
It was definitely a relief finding the programme, and especially coming to me during towards the end of my release, because that's how they approach you. And I was really desperate for just any opportunity, and I thought I would have to find it myself, but Switchback helped me get into what I like to do as well, which is cooking. And they made it very simple.
Yeah, to date, Switchback has supported more than 3,000 young men who are preparing to leave prison and rejoin their communities. Almost 91% of the trainees who successfully complete the programme do not reoffend within a year release, compared to about half of prison leavers nationally. You stayed the course. You worked at a bakery in East London that is a place that takes in ex-offenders and trains them, gives them a job and a future path. And then you go on to open this incredible restaurant in Battersea Power Station, like this multi-million-pound restaurant, big footfall, you know, incredible food. And you're already looking at your next step, because you got a taste for it, didn't you? Not just for cooking, but for setting up on your own for business and leadership.
Definitely after when I moved on from Dusty Knuckles, I was introduced to Arcade. And through that I met someone very close to me, Barry, which this man, he taught me how to run a business, how to look at business in a different way. And even eventually we brought onto the Switchback collaboration and Dusty Knuckles onto Arcade. And through me, we would hire ex-prisoners that have gone through the training programme to do just as well as I did.
Yeah. So Bundem is opening up in Enfield, which is a community you know well, because it's where you spent a lot of time as a youth when you were going through that troubled period of your life and you want to give back to that community. Have you ever thought of going into campaigning, in terms of you're such a great example of what can be done when ex-offenders are supported properly? I mean, it's, you know, support for prisoners is seen as a key to fixing not just the broken prison system and the overcrowded prisons, reoffending that cycle, but also to ending homelessness as well, because we know that's a big problem for those who are released in London. Have you ever thought of sort of lending your voice to that? Is something that that's something you want to go on to do as well?
It's definitely something that's gone through my mind. I really have a support group that believe in me. I believe in myself, more importantly, and I don't feel like anything is not achievable. I feel like if I wanted to, I can run for Prime Minister.
Oh, well, there you go, Celia. We heard it here first. Hopefully you'll give us your first interview when you're elected. But in terms of a message to those ex-offenders, because there can be a stigma when you come out of prison, and I know that you've talked about feeling that as well, thinking, will I get a job? Is there a career path for me? And you didn't want to engage originally with this kind of rehabilitation programme. What would your message be to ex-offenders?
Don't look away at any opportunity that's put towards you. Take every single opportunity. no one's good enough for to reject the offer.
Yeah.
And hopefully people look into such establishments like Dusty Knuckles, Switchback. Hopefully we get Bun and Burgers to do a similar setup as well, and we can run a training programme through that.
Well, listen, Sina, you know, you're only 24, about to sort of start your first step into your own food empire, helping ex-offenders, and also, you know, running for Prime Minister as well. You're going to be a busy man. I really appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck. Thank you. Also to come on the programme tonight, can England really complete a remarkable Ashes turnaround? Captain Ben Stokes thinks so. We'll find out if former England batsman Mark Ramprakash agrees. That's on the way.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
Welcome to the DHL Sports Hub on Sky News. Coming up, a huge all-British heavyweight boxing clash between former world champions Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury appears to be moving a step closer. And as England look to find a way back into their Ashes series in the third test with Australia, we'll hear from their vice-captain Harry Brook on what changes he'll look to make in Adelaide. But we start with Formula One, and Lando Norris has paid tribute to the part those around him at McLaren played in his maiden title win after finally being presented with the World Championship trophy. Norris took centre stage at the FIA Awards show in Uzbekistan's capital Tashkent after edging out Max Verstappen by just 2 points in the standings at the final race of the year in Abu Dhabi earlier this month. He was joined there by McLaren's chief executive Zak Brown and team principal Andrea Stella, with the Briton praising their roles and that of his teammate Oscar Piastri, who led for so long but ultimately had to settle for third place.
Where do I start? Obviously, I'll start with these guys. Congratulations, a thank you to McLaren, the team I've been with for many, many years, on giving both of us an incredible car that at times made our life very easy and beautiful, and we could bring home many wins to, all the way to the end of the season, of course. Mr. Piastri, the incredible teammate that I've had, who's helped me improve so much over the last few seasons. And made us the team that we are, allowed us, McLaren, to turn into the team, winning 2 constructors back-to-back. Of course, to Max as well, for challenging us the whole way, putting us under pressure, just doing what Max always does. But it was incredible. Obviously, this is a lot of people's dreams, a lot of racing drivers' dreams. And yeah, I got to finally live that one dream that I had when I was a little kid. It's been amazing to grow up here alongside a lot of you guys, to live it with McLaren, to get to race all the world champions that I've been racing against, Lewis, Max, Seb, Fernando, all the incredible drivers that I looked up to and watched when I was a little kid, and get that chance to race against them, to try beat them, to show what I can do against them all, and we managed to do that this year. So very proud, very happy, of course. Got very emotional on Sunday after the race. Then got extremely drunk and had an amazing time.
Well, here is a recap of how things finished up after 24 rounds. Norris doing enough to stay just in front of Verstappen, with Piastri only 13 points adrift of the champion. McLaren also retained their constructors' title, with Mercedes getting ahead of Red Bull to take second. Although Charles Leclerc produced the DHL fastest lap at the Yas Marina circuit, it was Norris who took the overall prize for 2025 there too. He and Piastri both had 6 successes each on that front, but the British driver came out on top on account of having more race points. Leclerc was also involved as Ferrari rounded off a resounding victory in the DHL fastest pit stop with the quickest time in Abu Dhabi. A visit of exactly 2 seconds means they finished 149 points clear of closest challengers McLaren. Verstappen, meanwhile, was named Driver of the Day, presented by Salesforce, for the 4th round in a row as he claimed an 8th Grand Prix victory of the campaign. Nobody's proved more popular with fans this year than the Dutchman, who's been given that accolade 8 times in total. Well, Verstappen will have a different teammate next season as a new era dawns in F1 and Red Bull try to address their over-reliance on the Dutchman. Isaac Hadjar will replace Yuki Tsunoda after the Japanese driver scored just 30 of their 451 points on the way to a 3rd place constructors finish. Hadjar, by contrast, collected 51 points in his debut campaign for Red Bull's junior team Racing Bulls. That season step up as the sport adopts smaller, more sustainable cars in 2026.
I'm lucky with the timing because of the new regulation. So I think that's already a big help to come in, fresh start for everyone. I think this is a huge advantage.
Some people claim the car is tuned to max. Well, this one can't be because it doesn't even exist yet.
It doesn't exist yet. It's not been produced, so
it's a clean sheet of paper.
Yeah, and if it gets to evolve in one direction, I'll be here to know what's going on and feel it underneath me, you know.
Being teammates with Max Verstappen, one of the greatest drivers of all time, is the toughest job in motorsport and possibly all world sport at the moment. It's been a bit of a revolving door at that seat. What's your mindset on that?
I'm very curious to know why it's that hard. And I feel very privileged to be at 21, having to have a go next to the best driver on the planet right now. So it's just super exciting to know what does the best guy on the grid do.
Hadjar's promotion has resulted in a step up too for British driver Arvid Lindblad. He tested for Red Bull earlier this month in Abu Dhabi and will partner Liam Lawson at Racing Bulls after 3 race wins in Formula 2 this year.
Tell us about this season, how you found out, when you found out, what the process was.
Yeah, so I found out in Qatar, yeah, obviously was super happy, super delighted. It's something I've been working towards since I was 5 when I started this journey. So yeah, it was obviously a very special moment. My dad was with me in Qatar, so he was the first person I told, and obviously we shared a nice moment.
The hard work starts now.
Exactly.
How many laps can you get in a Formula 1 car before you go testing?
I've done a little bit of TPC running so far. I don't know how much we can do now, obviously with shutdown and stuff. So I think maybe we'll try get a TPC day in, but I think realistically it's going to be a lot on the sim, a lot of preparation for next year. As we all know, it's going to be very different with the regulation changes. I'm in a little bit of a different position to a lot of the guys that have come through. Yes, I'm prepared, but 3 years ago I was in karting. You know, I've done 1 year in each category, so on that side, it's all been very fast. So for me, I'm just focused on learning as much as I can during this winter break and focusing on myself to work with the team, because realistically there's going to be so many new things. There's going to be so much stuff that I'm going to have to learn to get on top of. So all that I'm thinking about is getting the most out of myself, that sounds good, that, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Putting myself in as best position as possible, and then we'll see what happens, because there's so many unknowns next year that it's pointless me now talking about, yeah, I want to be better than, you know, this guy or that guy. I'm just focused on myself and working hard and giving myself the best preparation to start the year.
On to cricket now, and England will get their third Ashes test with Australia underway in less than 3 hours as they look to bounce back from defeats in each of the first 2 fixtures in Perth and Brisbane. Vice-captain Harry Brooks, one of the players who's felt the most criticism after a couple of good starts were thrown away, and he's vowed to be more controlled in Adelaide.
Sometimes I've got to rein it in a little bit, learn when to absorb the pressure a little bit more, and then realise when the opportunity arises to put pressure back on them. I feel like I probably haven't done that as well as I usually do in this series so far. No reason behind that. I just I haven't identified them situations well enough. The one in Brisbane I've tried to hit for 6, so that's what I mean when I try to say that I need to rein it in a little bit. I can almost just take that and hit it for 1 and get down the other end. Whoever else is in with me at the other end can just get on strike and just keep trying to rotate. I'll be the first person to stand up and say that they were bad shots, and I don't regret them, but if I was there again, I'd try and play it slightly differently.
Now it's the fight many boxing fans have been waiting to see, but could Anthony Joshua finally come up against Tyson Fury at last in 2026? Well, Fury's promoter Frank Warren says the 2 British former world champions are in talks over a summer bout, with Joshua's team also keen to make it happen.
There's been some talks going on. There's nothing's been signed yet, but Tyson, he's indicated that if it's the right deal, he'll definitely do it. He's been very good. He's been working very hard the last few months. He's had a lot of projects. He's doing a lot of PAs as well, so he's been very, very busy. He's enjoying himself. But he's been in the gym full-time training very hard, and he's in great nick. He looks well, and he said on many times himself he would like to come back and fight again. And 2026, I believe, provided the deal's right, I think you'll see him back in the ring again. If this fight happens, which I believe it will, if it does happen, it will be sometime in late summer. Tyson, he'll certainly have a fight in between, I think, if he comes back. Fans have been asking for this, and everybody's been talking about it for years and years and years. If it's going to happen now, then rather these guys come back and talk about doing it in 5 or 6 years' time. It will happen. I think it will happen, and I think when it does happen, I think it's going to be massive.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.